Ladies and gentlemen, I am not lying to you when I say I have not been as excited for a movie this year than I am right now to talk about 28 years later. Welcome once again to another episode of the Box Office Buds. My name is Tony Squares. I'm joined as always by Kellerman and Alche. We are in a fantasy box office league. Whoever makes the most money in the fantasy box office wins that league. You know about it if you watch this show, and we only say that because we have a person joining us today that watches this show regularly. I can't wait to talk to him about this movie. He's been ripping, so excited to talk to us about 28 years later for weeks. We're happy to have him in here. Mr. Paul Allen Cope, come on down. Welcome to the show, sir.
Woo! Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Now, my friend Paul here, he is a friend of our producer Jones, who you know the voice of. Sadly, he talks on this podcast every once in a while. He is also the creator of this fantasy movie league. He's the reason we have Paul on this show. Paul is a Hollywood veteran. He's a writer on Hulu's Death and Other Details, as well as the co-writer of the film Film Fest, which has Will Sasso in it, Rachel Lee Cook, and according to TJ, I didn't write this part of the intro, the nicest and smartest guy you'll ever meet. Those are some big things to live up to, my friend.
All of those things are true.
And you came into this recording session right now. You do listen to the show. You just listened to our episode where I just throw the notebook under the bus and run it over 7 times. But you came in saying you have a bone to pick with us. So let's just start right there. What is said bone?
I think that I actually agree with your assessment of the Notebook. I don't think Cyclops is
end
quite
the podcast.
I don't think that Cyclops is quite big enough of a character. I think he is a hurdle. He is not ever a viable option. And I think a triangle. Wow. I think in order for it to be a triangle, all 3 points have to be characters. And I believe my hot take coming in is that you left off possibly the greatest love triangle movie ever made. And it's a rom-com, which is Broadcast News.
Oh, wow. What a great movie. What a great movie.
It is a great movie.
Wow, interesting.
Broadcast News, and what I love about Broadcast News, and why I think it might be the greatest love triangle movie specifically, is you have a vested interest in every single one of those characters winning. And so it is inherently, no matter what the happy ending is, it is a tragedy as well. And that is the brilliance of the writing of that film, is you see the world through William Hurt's perspective, even if, obviously we all don't want William Hurt to win. There are going to be people who are rooting for him. But you also see the world through Brooks's perspective as well. And, the kind of tug of war between yourself is that either of these guys win, there's going to be happiness. Either of these guys lose, there's going to be happiness. Holly Hunter ends up with neither of them, and that becomes the happiest outcome of all.
Man, I mean,
that's an excellent suggestion.
Only on the Box Office Buds can you hear a take on Broadcast News. Amazing, amazing. We did forget that movie. Well, this might be the answer to the first question I'm going to give you here, because every guest we have on, we like to ask 3 questions at the start just to get the ball rolling. And the first question I was going to ask you is, enough people ask you what your favorite movie is. What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? I want to know from you, what's the most underrated movie out there? The movie that you love and more people should love.
The most underrated movie. Okay,
Don't be ashamed.
This is one of my top 5. I don't know if it quite qualifies as an underrated movie. Okay, yeah, it is. It is an underrated, because there's like some legitimate hate for this movie, and I think it's beautiful. The Darjeeling Limited.
Oh wow!
One of my favorites.
What a pull! It's a good movie.
I love that movie. I find it to be like it's. I just think it's beautiful, and I get something new out of it every time I watch it.
I couldn't agree more. I love the Darjeeling Limited.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, that's the answer to the first one, and a Broadcast News take. Let's get to the second question. What's the last movie you saw?
This is my kind of guy.
What is the last movie you saw in theaters? We are a box office podcast. We like to talk about the money these movies make in the theater. So what's the last movie you sat down, had some popcorn, and saw on the big screen?
This is it's perfect for this movie, or for this podcast, because this movie just came out. On Saturday afternoon, I saw How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
My guy.
I was
feeding
afraid you'd
Tony.
say that.
Agrees with me on James Marsden being a dope in The Notebook. Goes to see How to Train Your Dragon in movie theaters the week I need him to. Paul, you can come back every single week.
No.
The last question I want to talk about is, you've seen the fantasy box office standings. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, you can check out our Instagram. TJ posts the graphics every week because, again, we draft these movies. We want them to succeed. We're playing against each other in this league, so you can see the current standings every single week. You've seen them, Paul. You know what movies are coming out, what movies have yet to play out there. Who do you think on June 16th is going to win this league?
This is really, really, really tough because I think that we have this year's just I think going to be the year of surprises. I think we kind of start the year off with Sinners, which even though I had faith, it has done so much better than even I thought it was going to do. And I think some of those surprises, might flip the other way. I've got a lot of hope for F1, but if there's one movie that could betray us, I think that might be the one.
Don't let me down, Paul. God damn it, Paul.
It's an informed opinion. Jeez.
And then you have things like Megan or Mithrigan, which right. I think is like the safest over bet that you have of the year. I think.
Wow.
And so, man, I don't know. And then you have some big questions this year, which is Fantastic Four and Superman. I mean, these are really
not much of a question if you ask me. Also, if you think that Mithrigan is going to do something for TJ's overall box office, I think we're also
when you said Megan was the easiest over, does that mean over the trash can you're throwing it into, or what
listen?
Are you referencing?
I'm not talking about quality at all, other than the quality of the U.S. dollars that are being pumped into the studio system from some of these victories. I would say, right now, I think that this is. I might have to vote with Wax On Cinemas because I think that Superman is gonna pull it out. And you also have Freakier Friday, and I think Freakier Friday is also a pretty safe over. So I think that's my vote.
That's Alex Alche's movie theater, and you picked that one to be the winner, and he got so excited his computer died, and he has left his podcast. He may be coming back
immediately.
I can tell you right now, he's doing naked laps around his house right now because of how
was
excited
I
he is.
saw him getting excited right before he crashed.
Because not only were you talking about how good F1 was, not only were you talking about how good Superman's going to do, but you nailed the final Alex Alche trifecta with saying
Yes!
Freakier Friday is going to be the one that brings it all home. Alche's back. He picked you, Alex. How excited are you? Your computer died. It came back to life. You are the king of kings.
Well, my main man, Paul, like I've been saying this entire time, clearly knows his stuff, knows his box office, and is my new best friend. Thank you, Paul. And I just want to know one more question. What are your thoughts on Ethan Hawke?
I already love this answer. Perfect answer.
Don't
actually.
let me
You can
down,
stop right
Paul.
Yeah, we can stop right there. Let's move forward.
Exactly right.
Let's move forward.
You
Let's
nailed
leave Ethan
it.
Hawke, Ethan Hawke, Mel Gibson,
Ethan
Courtney
Hawke.
Cox takes to the side here.
They
Let's
are not
move
in
on
the
to
same.
why
They're
we're
not
here.
in
Why
the
we
same
have Paul.
world.
Why we have Paul in the show right now, because we might be recording this the third week of June, but I want to take you back to June 27th, 2003. Cillian Murphy wakes up in a hospital bed in London, and it is deserted. During a coma, a rage virus has taken over the city, turning most of the population into quote-unquote zombies. And what follows is a phenomenal tale of survival, of community, of horror, of lighthearted comedy at points. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm not joking when, if ever, I get interviewed by Letterboxd and I am asked, what are your 4 favorite films? I am not joking. 28 Days Later is in that top four for me. It has been since I've seen it. Alex Alche has known me the longest. He can attest to this. I truly adore this movie. And so when they said the long-awaited sequel, threequel, whatever you want to call it, was coming out 28 years later with the director, Danny Boyle, from 28 Days Later, with, most importantly, the writer, Alex Garland, from 28 Days Later. They were working on this project for so long. It was in development hell. 28 weeks later came out and they all couldn't do it. It was different names, 4 writers, 2 directors. It was a piece of crap. Sorry, Kellerman. But now
you're wrong. You're just wrong about
story,
that, by the way.
The true story of what this was meant to be, the story that they wanted to tell. 28 years later, almost 28 years after the first movie came out. I am so thrilled to talk about this movie. Do you three hold the original 28 Days Later in as high regard as I do? Not in your top 4 favorite movies, but do you consider it, in my opinion, one of the best horror movies of all time, or am I overinflating this original product? Kellerman, I'll go to you first.
I definitely think that it's a linchpin film. It's important in the horror genre. It changed a lot of things. It did a lot of things differently, especially against convention of the time. And it does like some really, this might be a little too inside baseball, but it did some absolutely incredible things considering the budget that it had, which was very low. And they still managed to get a lot of shots with cities looking empty, and it's like, it's not CG with cars removed. They stopped traffic for 30 minutes and had him walk across the biggest bridge in London. You know, it's like, it is an inspirational film, in my opinion, for filmmakers, and it delivers on the horror, and gosh, it's so good. I do agree. I don't agree that the second one is terrible. I think that 28 Weeks is just as good, if not better, personally. I know that could be a hot take for a lot of people, but I think that...
Listen, this podcast is going to go long enough. We're not talking about 28 Weeks later on this podcast.
What are you talking about? Hold on a second. I cannot allow you to cut out all 28 Weeks Later talk. We're talking about the new one. It's the third one in a trilogy where the first 2 were excellent. The fact that you don't like the second one doesn't make a difference at all.
Let me tell you, I know for a fact.
Last week.
Hold on, Kellerman.
Last episode.
All right. Calm down, guys.
Hold on. When we get to 28 years later, I know for a fact the plot and devices and characters from 28 Weeks Later will have nothing to do with the trilogy, if that tells you how much the creators enjoyed looping in the whole thing into 28 years later. Yeah. Alche, back to the original question.
Do you know that for a fact?
I do.
You know that
Alche,
for a fact?
I do. Alche, I'll bring it back to you with the question. 28 Days Later, the original, where does that stand now? We're many years, 2 decades past it came out. Where does that stand in
I'll
you
get
when
to
you
28
think about
days
it?
in a second, but 28 weeks is... No, we're definitely talking about 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later, I was a scaredy cat for a lot of my life. I have a vivid imagination, gentlemen, and I get scared very easily of things. I was not a horror guy. This was the first movie that turned me into a horror junkie, and it totally flipped the switch in me and showed me what horror could be, that it could be an elevated cinematic experience as well as a heartfelt, deep, important sort of analogy for life itself. It is a really special piece of art. Danny Boyle is one of the best filmmakers we have, and I think he doesn't get lauded as such because of the choices of films he decides to make. He doesn't make movies just to get awards. He makes movies to ask questions, to say things, to push boundaries, and this is probably his most successful effort in all of those endeavors. I think it's a really brilliant film. I wouldn't put it in my top 4 Letterboxd, but it is an excellent, excellent movie.
That's okay. I don't expect you to put it in your top 4 Letterboxd. We'll talk about top 3 zombie movies in a second. That's where the argument can be had. But let's talk to the person, our guest here, the only one that should be allowed to talk about movies. We're just 3 dopes. This man actually works in Hollywood. So 28 Days Later, my friend, where does that land in your movie-going experience? Are we overblowing this thing?
No, I think, listen, I think 28 Days Later is vital, especially for those of us of the millennial persuasion. And I think there's a sort of there's a Venn diagram effect as well, because for those of us who saw that film at a very young and impressionable age, who maybe had dreams of working in this industry, I think that it is so important. I saw that movie when I was in high school, when it came out, and to know that they made that movie with basically the same camera that I had at home, that I was making my little movies on, and knowing that the technology is almost identical, but with craft and with storytelling and with art and with intention and with control, this is what you can actually produce with that. And so as far as the upcoming digital era, and knowing, nobody knew then, but knowing now in hindsight, that what Danny Boyle was doing was he was actually kind of laying down the template of what movies are about to turn into. I find it very, very, very important to my life. I would not put Danny Boyle in one of my top filmmakers. I consider him to be somewhat uneven, because there are some movies that he made that are so important to me, this being one of them. I'm also going to shout out Millions. I think that's probably his underrated movie.
Millions.
I love that film.
I feel like Sunshine is a little more underrated than Millions.
And Sunshine is fine too.
In the same plane,
yeah.
I think.
Finding out that Sunshine was almost going to be a series in this press run is like so heartbreaking. That is, we should have gotten that. That was taken from us. But then there are also, he swings big, and I give him a lot of credit for it. But we do get things like Yesterday from those swings. And
I like
Yesterday also.
Is it a great film? Absolutely not. It's got one. It's
It
one great conceit. It's one
like
fun
the Beatles.
conceit.
It's a great
one
premise.
fun conceit. Yes,
it's a great premise. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
an
a great
incredible
premise.
premise.
SNL sketch.
Yeah, it's a great SNL sketch. Yeah, it is but it's way too long.
The thing that impressed me the most, not just with the movie, and I promise, folks, we're going to be talking about the movie coming out.
This is what the
but
people want to
One more
hear
thing about the movie that. I do want to say one more thing about 28 Days Later and what Danny Boyle did. As you said, he's making this with a camera that we all had at home. He's making this with zero budget. They're just pulling off all the camera tricks. It's why I love Swingers as much as I do, because of how they made the movie, not just the movie itself. Danny Boyle, I think, especially when it comes to horror, because I think that's really where and you even see it in Slumdog Millionaire. Like, you see some of the horror aspects in those movies because of what he does with the camera. To me, I'm very picky about my horror, especially recent horror. It's one of the many fights me and TJ have talking about movies, because I think recent horror is all about the jump scare and all about the quick scare and the buildup of tension, using the camera to tell a story, not exactly jumping right to the blood and gore, but rather making you think it's around the corner and slowly getting to that corner. Danny Boyle does an excellent job of doing that in 28 Days Later, and that's why I'm so excited for 28 years later. So let's push it forward to this movie coming out. Before we get into how it's going to be, how you're going to like it, how much money it's going to make, I do want to say one thing that does scare me about 28 years later. The fact that when 28 Days Later came out, they weren't expecting movies to come out of this. Of course, that's what everyone wants, right? You want a franchise. They weren't planning a franchise when they made this movie. 28 Years Later is the first of a trilogy. This is the planned out thing. 28 years later, The Bone Temple is coming out January 16th of next year. They've already filmed it. They filmed both back to back. Alex Garland wrote it all. Danny Boyle had a hand in it, but the director of that second one is Nia DaCosta. She made The Marvels, and she is directing The Bone Temple. So I am a little bit worried that we are not getting, of course I want more of this storyline, more of this world, but I am worried that we are not getting a full A to B story, but rather a launching off point for something moving down the line, the first of a trilogy. As a writer, Paul, does that worry? Would you attack that project differently if you know you have a second and third movie to land the plane? Or do you think this first one's going to be enough to sit there and be happy with the movie-going experience?
I think I think Yeah, I'm concerned with you as well, because I like to see I like to see the artists, that are kind of engaging and starting something, finish it.
Yeah.
But I do think, we are going to have some consistency with Alex Garland involvement in the trilogy. And
Yep.
what gives me hope is Alex is at a point right now where he's not doing something unless he wants to. I don't think I think that there are days for him in the last few years where maybe he doesn't even know what he wants to do from time to time. But I don't think that he's starting a script that he doesn't know how to finish. I don't think that any studio is offering him. I don't think anybody sat him down and said, what we need is a 28 trilogy. I think he had an idea. I think he had some inspiration, and I think that idea got a lot of people excited. And the wheels of this train started based on that. So that is what gives me hope, because what gets Alex Garland excited over the past few decades has also gotten me excited as a viewer.
Yeah.
So I'm on board for that. And I'm really interested to see his words coming out of a young director, a director who, probably still has a lot of untapped potential. That it does excite me a little bit. Yeah, I'm worried with you as well. Her previous film was not one of my favorites. But I also know that the Marvel machine has turned a lot of great directors into, previs shells. Is that
I will
the term?
defend
What are you
the
talking about?
Marvels, and more importantly,
all those Marvel movies are great. What are you talking? They haven't missed
Hold on,
yet.
Kellerman's defending the Marvels. Kellerman's
and
defending
more
the Marvels. Please continue.
I will defend the Marvels, and more importantly, I will defend the directing of the Marvels, which I thought was possibly the best part of the movie.
So just for those keeping score at home, Kellerman is a fan of the Marvels and 28 weeks later. One thing I want to say, you talked about how excited you were for this movie and how you're not the only one, my friend. When this trailer came out for 28 years later, it was one of the biggest YouTube trailers of the year. There were so many views over 24 hours, over 48 hours. People were excited this, and that was surprising to me because these movies don't make money. The original movie only made $72.6 million worldwide. The second one did even worse. And so now we're looking at it that, do we think this movie will make money? It was also really hard to see this movie. It was in distribution hell for decades. You weren't allowed to stream it. You weren't allowed to get it on your Netflix, your Amazon Prime. Now it's only most recently, since they started this project making the new trilogy here, has it been allowed to be out there. You had to physically buy a DVD that they stopped printing because they weren't allowed to distribute this movie, and yet it has still built up that, I wouldn't even call it a cult following anymore. People know about this movie and are excited to see the new one. So before we get to guessing the over-under of what it will do opening weekend, none of these movies hit 100 million yet. What is the overall box office when this is all said and done for a horror movie coming out in the middle of June that is 20 years after the first one came out? Do you think this will be a financial success? Let's put a number on it. Alche,
Well, when you
what say
frame it
you?
that way, it's an incredibly challenging question because of just how poor in terms of the box office it did. But we're so far from when that movie came out. And have grown the audience in such a way. And Danny Boyle has done so much more. And Alex Garland, probably more importantly than Danny Boyle at this point, has become a name that you can rely on and trust to create films that are going to rock you to your core in some fashion. Most recently in Civil War and Warfare, back-to-back, both incredible films that were... Okay,
Well,
relax. Civil War is an amazing movie.
Love and Warfare.
Give me a
We'll just say
break.
that. Love
Paul,
and
what do you think
Warfare.
of Civil War?
Civil War.
Keep going.
Thank you.
Masterpiece.
Keep going.
I love
Paul's
Civil
back
War.
in my good graces. Yeah, I agree. Civil War is an absolute masterpiece. It's a hard film to watch in this day and age, Tony. I agree. You probably weren't able to watch, but it was excellent. More importantly,
Keep going.
all right,
28 years later. That's what the
more
podcast is about.
importantly, I really believe that there is so much buzz around this movie that this movie has a real potential to hit like 250. Yes, there's a lot of competition coming out. Yes. What? What are you looking at me like that for, huh?
Kellerman's making big eyes at you.
250?
Kellerman,
No,
let me
No,
jump
bro.
on top of that. I think this is cresting 300,
Wow.
350. I think this will be an absolute financial success. This has already
Bless your
had
soul.
this has already had the most pre-sale. I mean, I'm going to get the exact specifics of this wrong, but this set a record for pre-sale for this year for a movie specifically in the horror genre, more than Sinners. People are excited to see this movie opening weekend. Will it have the tail that it needs to hit that number? I believe it will, because I believe we're not only going to have a interest opening weekend, but I think this is going to be a critical success, and people are going to be like, dude, have you seen this movie yet? Which is what happened with Sinners. It became that type of a movie that everyone talked about, and you need to go and see it. I've loved the marketing behind it. I've loved the trailers they've put out. I love the poem they use during the trailer, the Boots poem, Rudyard Kipling. Everything they've done is exactly what I've wanted from
The
the
poster.
movie. I think it's going to hit a home run.
The Spinal Column poster. That is one of the most hardcore posters.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing with the marketing here.
So Kellerman obviously has a lower number, but Paul, what say you? How much money will this make when it's all said and done?
All right. So it's my first time on the podcast, and I'm a good student. I'm a good boy. So I came with a little bit of. I came with some receipts. So
thank you. Let me tell you one thing before you go. That's more work than Kellerman has ever done for this podcast. So we thank you for that.
It's true.
Okay, so I'm basing my prediction off of a similar a horror film that came out only a few weeks ago, and that is Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, as far as content goes, I don't think these movies have a lot of overlap at all, but I do think that it tells us the most that we're going to know about an audience's desire and thirst right now for horror. And you mentioned a very important point a few minutes ago, which is the pre-sales for this are bonkers. I think the number is like $35 million.
Crazy.
In ticket pre-sales, and beat Bloodlines. So I think that if Bloodlines is our floor, and Bloodlines made $51 million opening weekend, and right now has grossed worldwide 270. I think 300 is easy for this movie to do. I think it's going to do 300, and I think if it's great, and we get the kind of Sinners, water cooler boost, the word of mouth, I think 350 is also pretty attainable for this movie.
Well, that would be great for 28 years later as a franchise. It also would be great for our good friend and competitor, Matthew Dangles D'Angelo Antonio. He is currently
Tony, sorry to cut you off.
In the box office clubhouse.
But I just think, yes, 300, 350 is attainable in a vacuum. It's going to be real tough to maintain this with Superman, with F1, with Fantastic Four, with 100%. Jurassic World all in the next month or so. I mean, we got a lot of competition over the next 2 months.
It's a big summer. This is a big summer.
So, yes. However, Bloodlines is still maintaining that slow climb to 300, so anything's possible.
It is, and it also does have Megan coming around the corner if you want to have that horror movie buff, although I don't think it's going to be comparable at all. But again, for Matthew Dangles D'Angelo Antonio, he is the leader in the clubhouse. He has movies already, Captain America, Sinners, and Mission Impossible. They have all done really well financially for Dangles, not necessarily for themselves when we're talking to Captain America. If 28 years can hit that 300, 350 number, an excellent team for Dangles. He also has The Conjuring coming out at the end of the year, and then a play on SpongeBob SquarePants, the whatever SpongeBob movie's coming out, to try and be his indie movie, go over 150, you bust. He's hoping to get closer. For this movie in particular, though, I think it was a great draft pick by Dangles because he only spent $15 on it in our fantasy draft auction. $2 less than Alche spent on F1, $3 less than Ben Rosen spent on that crap Snow White. So I think this was a great pick by Mr. D'Angelo Antonio. I want to tip my cap to him. However, before we guess the domestic weekend opening, what that
hold on a
will
second.
be.
I still haven't given my overall.
Oh, that's right. Go for it. What do you think it's going to make overall? Let's can't wait to hear this one.
Excuse me. I need to give my estimation. I'm going to go quite a bit lower. I think that this does under 200 million. I would say, I'm going to guess 190 total.
190 total for 28 years later. But the question remains, can it reach the critical success and the cultural success that 28 Days Later did? I mean, if it can hit that, even if it can hit 50% of 28 Days Later, I'll be so happy to see this in the movie theaters because, gentlemen, I know Kellerman will disagree about the specificities of this answer, but I think 28 Days Later is a top 3 zombie movie in the long listed history of zombie movies. Kellerman, am I allowed to listed history of zombie movies?
You're not. You're not. We can definitely do a top 3 zombie movies. But I'm sorry to tell you that, you know what? I'll allow you to include it just because of the backlash I'm already getting from the group. But
no,
the simple fact of the matter is
they're not zombies.
The simple fact of the matter is they are not zombies.
Yeah, they're infected with a rage virus, so I get it. If we want to be specific about this, if we want to do top 3 zombie movies, we need to be specific about it. If they're not zombies, then they're not zombies. That's okay.
They are not zombies. The vampires in I Am Omega or whatever it was called are not zombies.
I Am Legend ain't making this list anyway, even if they were zombies.
Thank you.
So if that's the case,
they're also kind of like vampires too. I mean, they're
very weird.
So
exactly.
if 28 Days Later is thrown to the curb because technically they're not zombies, what are the top 3 zombie movies? Can I give you 2 other movies that are definitely thrown out because technically they're not zombies; they're kind of just living undead. But they do deserve.
Well,
mention.
that is
What?
a zombie though.
Well, is Death Becomes Her with Meryl Streep a zombie movie? Because no, they just keep coming back to life. It's a fantastic flick, though, and yes, I'm only mentioning it because it's on Broadway right now. The second one, what would you qualify Jack Skellington as in Nightmare Before Christmas?
He's a skeleton. What do you mean?
He's an undead.
He is alive.
He's
Jack's-
a living undead.
He's a pumpkin king.
No. Sorry. Yeah.
Just say it. We want to qualify these.
A zombie is a reanimated corpse that craves brains.
Thank you for the tutorial.
Just
All
to
right.
be clear.
What are the top 3 zombie
Frankenstein?
movies?
Is Frankenstein a zombie?
No. Frankenstein doesn't eat brains.
He is.
I could see the
He doesn't
argument.
eat brains, though.
I could see an argument. That's true. He doesn't crave brains.
We're not putting.
What sucks with
We're not
Frankenstein?
putting Mary
is we
Shelley's
never-
Frankenstein into top 3
I know
zombie
we've never gotten
movies.
Frankenstein's "I Want" songs. So we have no idea.
I
what
know.
he craves.
Exactly.
Alche, throw one out there because I know I
Dawn
agree
of
with
the
one
Dead.
of yours.
Dawn of the Dead. It's got to be on there. The original.
Which?
That's there we go.
No, I don't agree. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm
What
so
is
sorry.
wrong with you?
much as
Sometimes
I
I
love
don't
the
understand you, and this is one
as
of those
much-
times.
Look, hold on a second. Now, as much as I love George A. Romero's original Dead trilogy, and in fact, Day of the Dead is my favorite of them, which is on my top 3 list, I think Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead had a much bigger impact.
Blah, blah.
I'm sorry. I think that it reinvented the genre at a time when people weren't really making zombie
God.
movies.
Well, Paul, thank you
It,
for
like,
joining. That's all we have
repopularized-
for today. If you want to like and subscribe, feel free to go down to the channels. We will be back next
Are
week
you
talking
kidding
about
me?
something
Hold on.
else.
Stop exiting the show here. This is another movie where like the first 15 minutes are some of the best zombie 15 minutes that exist on film.
Yeah. And then what about the rest of the movie?
The rest of the movie aside, that automatically puts it towards the top of my list.
Okay. Paul, anything to throw out here?
It's kind of interesting though because Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, which a lot of the people, I think the conceit is, it gives us the running zombie, but 28 does have running zombies. Now, are they zombies?
But they're not zombies.
It's a good question, and then we could launch into debate: which is more important? Is it the infection, or is it that they're dead and coming back to life? And because I think that filmmakers have really latched onto the infection being the exciting part. That is the thing that keeps getting reinvented. It's not necessarily that they are dying and coming back. That has kind of engaged people in the last 20 years specifically. It is the infection. And that is what creatives are spending a lot of time thinking about, is the infection part of this. And if that's the case, then...
Sorry to interrupt, but you know what creatives aren't spending a lot of time thinking about? Zack Snyder movies. But keep going.
I do tend to agree with that as well. Now,
you might be wrong about that.
I think Dawn of the Dead is awesome. I think it is baller. And I think that it is it's my favorite kind of remake, which is, it is a remake that is fundamentally the same and also different. It does add things to the original, but the original is perfect. I think that the original...
It's classic. It's obviously
so
classic.
good. It's so funny and weird and insane. And I will say that's the thing that Zack Snyder just removes from every movie is
zaps any personality from any film ever. Yes.
Yeah,
they look really pretty though. I love music videos.
Okay, so we got great. Dawn of the Dead on there.
I do love music videos. Yeah, can I jump on that? The fact that it's funny, that it's insane, that it's witty, that it thinks about itself. Because if we're going to put Dawn of the Dead on there, I think those same categories.
I love Shaun of the Dead. I love Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
2 thumbs up.
I think Shaun of the Dead needs to be in there, and especially with the we're talking about camera work and how they tell the story using the camera. the amount of repeat shots in that, when like we're not infected and now we're walking through the world and it's infected and it's the same thing happening. It's so pretty and it's so simple and it's so well done. I think Shaun of the Dead needs to be number 2,
and it's utterly hilarious.
Number 1, which leaves us. It's so funny. Which leaves us to our third. I have a pick for the third. I don't think you guys are going to agree with it, but I don't think we've heard Alche throw one out there. Oh no,
I threw out Dawn of the Dead. Yes, George A. Romero.
So then, Paul, will you throw one out there?
If this were my personal list, and even though we have a Romero on here, I still think I would do Night of the Living Dead.
You would put Night and Dawn over Day?
I know. I think that I would. And I'll tell you why. I think that in a similar way to I just love how he made Night of the Living Dead. And I have rewatched that one the most because just knowing they had nothing. Talk about budget and box office return on budget. Night of the Living Dead is so important. It also, for lack of a better term, infects America with zombie fever. I mean, it is what
it invented the genre. For sure.
And so I think from a historical standpoint, and then the racial allegory, which unfortunately for our country has done nothing but age poorly, and Night of the Living Dead is as important today as it was back then.
It's true.
So I think for those reasons, I can't think of one right now that I would put above it. And I know it's a weak answer.
It's okay.
No, it's a great answer. That's the one I had written down of the George A. Romero movies. I do want to try to just keep one of his movies on here, even though they are all
I
really
think that's
fantastic.
A good. I yield the number 3 slot for that alone.
All right, Tony, hit us.
So let me throw one out there. It's my third favorite zombie movie if we're not having 28 Days Later. Train to Busan. I think it's
interesting.
Perfect film. I think it's the storytelling. It's so heartfelt. It's meaningful. It's also the best zombie movies are the simple zombie movies, and this one is unbelievably simple. It also has some great surprise endings, some great action, some great jump scares, as well as the building tension throughout the whole thing. It also does a great telling of class dynamics and how that plays into, even in a devastating situation, how it still matters who you are in this world of class and how that protects you. I love it. So that
it's a great movie. Third one. It's a great movie.
Gosh, that is a really great pick. I can't even really argue that it should be on the list.
It's
but
tough
I have
to
throw out one more. That's my personal favorite zombie movie. It's not the traditional favorite, but it is the zombie movie that I have watched 100 times and will continue watching it over and over again, which is Return of the Living Dead. And I fear that Paul is probably the only one of us that's
I have seen that movie. I have seen that movie. It is very good.
Okay, great.
That's great.
It is by far my favorite, with punk zombies and send more cops and all of the the taxidermied animals coming to life. Like, it is, like, in my opinion, the quintessential zombie movie, but of course it's very low budget and unserious. So you've also got Hot Naked Zombie.
Hot Naked Zombie.
I mean, it has so many of the great. So many great.
I got to
tropes.
throw out a cult classic that is not really a classic, but is quite prevalent in today's culture, and that is Jennifer's Body.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't come anywhere close to the top 3, in my opinion.
I also
It's not even in the top 10.
This is not my top 3 or top 5, but I do think it's these are definitely part of today's culture, and has informed a lot of what has happened to today's box office. World War Z. Oof. And Zombieland.
Yeah.
Zombieland deserves an honorable mention also for reinvigorating the genre.
I mean, really did. In a big bad way. World War Z is very interesting because it's like is it the most
a terrible
rumored
movie based on an incredible book?
I agree with you. I don't think that it's as successful as the book, but it is so rumored. There are so many rumors, and we had the Fincher sequel happening for so long. That's a really interesting one because it did very well. It's kind of the fact that we didn't get a sequel is surprising, and that was a little bit of a no-brainer. And then we got throughout.
So great.
Yeah.
Not zombies. I gotta look. Yeah. Evil Dead is probably my favorite horror franchise that exists, but they're Deadites. They're not zombies. And again,
he's gonna hold you to it.
Animated corpses. They're not real, and that's why. And that's where Death Becomes Her also misses the mark because they don't die and come back to life. They just don't.
Great
die.
movie though. I will go with Train to Busan. I will yield to Train to Busan. That would be my pick.
I agree. I can't argue against it.
I think it's the most we've ever agreed on a top 3 list. The top 3 zombie movies are Dawn of the Dead, the George A. Romero version, Train to Busan, and Shaun of the Dead. Producer TJ, you want to give us a head nod that you agree with this top 3 list?
He does.
He gets the thumbs up. Off screen. Let's jump to a movie that cannot compete for the top 3 zombie movie list because of the ruling of Alexander Kellerman, but that's okay. Can it be a top 3 anything list? Can it reach my top 4 letterboxed 4 favorite movies 28 years later? We've talked about it enough. This podcast has gone on long enough. Let's finish this show doing what we do every single week. We're guessing the domestic box office, and will it go over or under the number that TJ gives us? Producer's been sitting in the back listening to us talk about it, getting all the estimates that are out there, and has a number for us. I have not been doing well recently in guessing the over-under number, yet I still have the only record that is over 500. We're doing 2 guesses this week, today and tomorrow's show. Kellerman, you won last week. You caught up to us. You are now 8-11. Congratulations. Right home.
I don't know if I caught up.
Happy about that one. I am 10-9. Paul, you'll be guessing for the first time from the guest spot here. So, TJ, 28 years later, what is the number for the domestic box office over-under?
Very quickly, because I know we're running long, but I will bet you $100 that Megan makes more than this movie.
TJ, what is the number for the box office opening weekend?
Sounds like a scared response. Sounds like a scared response. The number, gentlemen, for the first time in podcast history, we've only had one other time when there's 2 movies we were doing it for, but the first time when both movies have the same over-under, we're going with 40 million for 28 years later. 40 million.
We will be guessing Elio's number on tomorrow's show. That will also be 40, a double 40 for both of these movies. 28 years later, I am hammering the over. I'm telling you, I think this is a huge opening week, a surprisingly ginormous opening weekend for a horror movie. I'm excited to see it. People are excited to see it. Give me the over 40 million. We're going to end with our guest, Paul. We'll go next to the man who's losing this race right now, but made up ground last week, Kellerman.
40 is a big number. Sinners did 48, if my homework was correct. Gosh, I think Elio is coming out against it. We've still got so much in the theater.
Elio, the number one competition
$35 million in pre-sales makes me think that it'll easily do another 5 in live sales. So I'm gonna go over.
That's 2 overs. Alche, what say you?
Yeah, as much as I'd love to be a contrarian here, I really do believe in this movie, and there's really no competition for it right now. Bloodline's lust has subsided, so I'm going to say over as well and be boring, but I think this thing makes a lot of money.
Triple over. Can we get 4 times? Can we get a quadruple? Paul, 40 million over or under?
All right, I know you guys just said we're not talking about Elio, but I have to bring it up because it's an important factor. I think Elio is going to answer a question that we haven't had in a while, which is, do kids' movies do better or worse with a strong lead-in? How to Train Your Dragon just came out. It's doing very, very, very well. Does that help Elio or does it actually hurt Elio? Are parents going to be trained by this and we're getting into a movie-going habit? Or did they go to a movie just last weekend? We just spent our movie dollars. Superman's right around the corner. Are we waiting?
Paul, thank you for teasing tomorrow's episode.
Elio?
We really appreciate that.
I really wanted to do well because I'm a Pixar defender. But I'm gonna go see it. But I'm a freak and I see everything, and my movie habits are not a good mark for this. So I'm siding right now with 28 years later. I have to be boring. It's going over. It's going over. It is. And $34 million in pre-sales. That means it only, in order to go over, only needs to make $6 more million. It's going over.
4 overs. 4 overs for the 40 million number of 28 years later. I know Dangle's listening at home is very happy. He will be continuing to lead our stupid little fantasy movie league. Tomorrow, though, we're talking about the main competition. We're talking about Elio. We're talking about Pixar. Might even dive into the top 3 Pixar movies. An exciting week. Thank you for joining an extremely long version of the podcast. But let me tell you, folks, this movie was worth it. Okay? And yes, Kellerman might be mad at me, but we ended up coming into an agreement at the end. Boys who are always here, we'll see you next on tomorrow's episode. But Paul, thank you for joining us. It was a blast, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate it.